Hello, and welcome to an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw Thursday edition. I just wanted to take a quick moment, as this has now popped into my head because there are two people here from that place. Happy 4th of July. To everyone who might be listening from the United States, happy 4th of July. I hope you have a fantastic day, just because it's a fantastic day. Not because it means anything about you or your country or anything as a whole. Fuck that shit. Just enjoy the day because it's another day that you exist, and you can make the most of it just because it exists.
Yeah, I honestly kind of forgot it was July 4th today. It hit me once or twice. I saw the date and then I was like, oh shit, yeah.
It's just July 4th.
It's I mean, it's the same with any holiday really. Like, it's so interesting how we'll like layer on certain, it's just like ideas about the moment that you're in, or like that it means something additionally, like gives you some sort of structure for like what to do in a day. It's like, oh, what do we do on 4th of July? Well, watch fireworks, do barbecue, hang out, like blah blah. And that's the same for any holiday. And then it's like match that, and it's interesting how much we just take that as it is and not look. Again, it's like, not to say that you should or you have to, but the holiday thing is very, just like the conceptual, expectations.
It's a special day, don't you know? And that's how we treat it. We treat it like it's an extra special day because it has this extra special label and instructions, and it's like, this is just another version of now, of here, of today, of life, and so it's not more or less special because it's a holiday or not. It just feels incredibly special because there is a lot of attention that's being paid, and with that attention it feels special. And the example that I like to give is when you're chatting with someone and they are looking you in your eye and they are not even looking at their phone, and they are enthusiastically chatting with you, and when someone is giving you quote unquote 100% of their attention, you feel, I mean, it's not that you only feel special, but it's an example of where, like, I have heard people say that they appreciate it when someone is paying attention to them and listening to them and actually wants to, makes them feel special, having that additional attention. And I feel we put additional attention on these days, and because of that, it feels special, but we think that it's only tied to the holiday, the label. And we could apply that anywhere, where, some of my favorite memories with friends are not on holidays, but are in random scenarios where we are sometimes literally laughing inside of a 72-inch TV box that we cut a hole in to watch the new 72-inch TV inside the TV box and smoke a joint. And it was like we were laughing inside of a cardboard box and having the time of our lives. And it was no special holiday. We just built the TV stand. And me and my friend were so proud of ourselves that we built the TV stand. We put the TV on it. And then we're like, what are we going to do? How are we going to celebrate? I don't know. We're just going to dive in the box, watch the TV from inside the box, and smoke a joint. And that felt incredibly special, not because it was decided beforehand, but just because there was so much attention being paid in that moment that it felt incredibly special. But that's existence. Existence feels incredibly special.
I think there's something there to be said too, just because why does it feel special? Well, in contrast to how often there is no attention. All these holidays or all these moments with people, there is an attention on them, and that's what makes them special. But that's just because the rest of the time we're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? They feel so special, but in the same way that, relaxation feels so incredibly transformative when you finally do it after being tense for a while. But it's because you've been tense for a while.
Yeah.
Right? So it's kind of indicative of how little attention is actually happening in our environment. There's kind of an attention deficit. Just Kind of funny.
Seriously. And we apply that to, schooling and learning, but it's just like general lack of attention. And the more you're told what to pay attention to, it's like the more you're always looking for those things to pay attention to, the things that, you should be paying attention to, the things that you're learning right now, instead of just paying attention, like general attention all the time. And that's to, the experience that you're having right now. And there's always that opportunity to make the most of whatever situation that you're in. Even if you're feeling, overwhelmed or unsure, like you can still stay in that spot there, in that experience, in that feeling, and not assume that there should be something else that's happening or something else that you need or someone else that you need to do anything about that, as if that could happen one way or the other. It's like when you do relax, it's going to be you relaxing. Like someone can't do that for you. A situation, a holiday, a person, like no one can do it for you. And every time you look somewhere else, be it a holiday, like looking forward to a holiday, so then you can, do certain things in order to relax. It's like that doesn't necessarily, it always, each and every time, like takes away the potential you see and your willingness to see that you could do that right now. Like you can do that right now. The opportunity is here, and it's not about curating this perfect feeling or situation. It's just responding and not getting too much in your own way, by assuming things one way or the other.
Right. And that's why sometimes the holidays don't feel very holiday-y. They don't feel very fun because there's that expectation, the it's forced. You're trying to make a day into a concept. You've turned the now into a concept. You're living for the there, and it takes away from being here. And so even holidays don't always feel like it's a holiday. And the same can be said for vacations. People put so much pressure on the vacation is now, this is where I'm going to be paying attention. This is where I'm going to make the most of life. And this is where it's going to feel worthwhile. And then they get there and they're at these 4th of July celebrations, or they're on vacation and they're stressed out. So even when we have these holidays that are supposed to be extra fun, it's not fun because it's forced, it's expected. And then, there's all this pressure leading up to these holidays, leading up to these vacations. This is where I'm going to relax. This is where it's going to happen. And then it's like, it's not happening. And we don't see that it's not happening because you're still thinking about about how, this holiday is not going the way that it's supposed to be. And it's not taking away that lack that you still keep creating.
Yeah, well said. This is a raw episode, so I just wanted to say, everybody who's currently watching the live stream, hello, welcome. We are streaming on 5 platforms at the moment: YouTube Live, Twitch, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you are not currently following us on LinkedIn, please do. I mean, LinkedIn is a great network, and the fact is that we're trying to do a lot more on there in terms of expanding the conversation, getting people involved, and connecting with like-minded professionals that are out there, maybe trying to build a project that's very similar to Dualistic Unity in terms of being an expression of their authenticity, expression of their, I guess, intention to simply expand. So if you're not following us on LinkedIn, definitely do that. And if you would like to participate in the comments section, do, because we like to read your comments. We love to answer questions, and we would love to hear your opinions of these conversations as they go on. I think it's really important. I don't think people recognize enough that we are not standing here trying to teach. We are just standing here spending time, making ourselves available to anybody who would like to come and chat and shoot the breeze, challenge us, have a good conversation, right. And whatever it is, if you just want to share something, if you want to ask a question, whatever it might be, this is really just a virtual space, even I would say a conscious space for you to just be and do whatever it is you want to do. You know, that's why we try and make the call-in shows available, and we have the roundtables regularly. And the roundtables, again, are a great chance if you have a project, a company, a product, a newsletter. Say you just wrote a book, whatever it might be, and you want to come chat with us. The roundtables are the best way for you to do that, because we do them every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. And they're an hour and a bit. They're long, is what I'm saying. So there's more than enough opportunity for you to get in there and come and chat with people as a whole, or join us on the groups on Wednesdays, which are always free as well. The point being is that this is your space. So if you want us to talk about something, if you have a curiosity, we'd love to hear about it. Doesn't mean we're always going to do it. Just making that one right clear early on, because if we don't want to talk about it, then we won't. But that's something to talk about in itself. Why wouldn't we want to talk about it? It's kind of important to remember, like, this is a playground for asking things and questioning things and going down different pathways without ever trying to settle on something, always coming back to the recognition of, all right, now that I've seen that, I still don't fucking know.
And still not jump to conclusions, even if you do hear something or recognize something. Like, still the use in trying to formulate some guarantee of tomorrow, even, you know, let alone next month, next year, 5-10 years, like focusing any degree of your attention on that. And that goes even pushing like a few seconds ahead, a few minutes ahead, like that idea of like, oh, what's gonna be next, what's gonna happen next, how can I control this to get to the next thing, or to maintain what I think I am, like what I hold on to for some sense of certainty, you know, like some sense of a guarantee of, I don't know, security, safety. And a lot of times those ideas and stories, like a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves, like they're never guarantees. And a lot of times they just, you know, become habitual responses in certain situations, in certain experiences, and any other story is just as applicable, just as appropriate, because that one that you're telling yourself isn't true. Like, it's never spot on, and a lot of times not even very close. And so the focus on it doesn't do you any good for your experience, like the experience that you're a part of, that you're involved in, that you're being right now. Like, it doesn't help with that.
Oh yeah, you know, but it is certainly informative to be able to see how not worth it is to run headfirst into a wall, you know. And as much as people would tell me when I was a lot younger, like, slow down, slow down, Amanda, slow down. And I'm like, they're old, they're slow.
What do they know?
What do they know? Exactly. And I ran headfirst a few times, more than a few times, and then eventually it just hit me, and it stopped being worth it. This moment being treated like a means to an end stopped making sense. And it stopped making sense because I wasn't, terrified. I wasn't running at full speed, and for me, it came through like getting hurt and actually having to take time away from working. My breaks felt like they were forced, but when I think back to them retroactively, it's like, no, that wasn't forced. That makes total sense. I was burning the candle at both ends. Like, it makes total sense that my body physically crashed. It's like I wasn't forced to take a break. Like, I had to take a break, or I would have just spent this opportunity. So I definitely have a respect for the wall that I both was and ran into, and You know, that's I say respect because there's, you know,
Like, well done.
you know,
I did the wall thing. Great.
Mhm.
I don't really love those memories, but I respect them. You know, and that's how I lived. It wasn't worth it versus having someone tell me, and I couldn't just take the concept. Like I actually had to experience the consequence, the ripple of the choices and the priorities that I was making in order to see that they weren't worth it because I pursued them so blindedly, you know, so single-mindedly,
Yeah.
and it didn't work.
Because it never does. Like it's like never gonna work. Like that investment talking about a couple days ago in control. Like it's an investment just dumping money
Right.
into the pit of the ocean, into the void, into
Burning it.
nothing that turns into anything. Like it doesn't give you shit. It doesn't help, and it can feel like it does because it can seem like it can turn in to certain things. But you know, when you're in the spot that you're thinking about, you know, the place in your life, the situations, the spots when you've become, I don't know, something other than what you are somehow, you know, it's the thoughts about them. Like when you're there, you're here again. Like you're still here as you, responding to your environment, responding to your situation, and that fluctuates minute to minute, like the experience that you're having. And so trying to overlay some situational ideas around situations, like situational ideas around situations. That's a good one right there. You know, it cuts away from your ability to make the most of this. Anytime there's attention on some external, you know, some focus, some way you think you can control what's next, instead of just, you know, relaxing into what you're experiencing a little bit more and paying attention to it, like being involved in it.
Oh yeah, right. Because you know, sometimes you hear the phrase, "Why does this keep happening to me?" You know, like, why do I keep finding myself in the same position? Why do I always date this same person? And it's like, because you're not paying attention. And that's what it boils down to. It's like you want to know why you keep taking the same classes because you're not taking in the lesson. Because as you change, as the, you know, and it felt like that with school, like as you take in the lesson, the classes change. But if you don't take in the lesson, you don't pass to the next grade. And not that life is a set of classes to go through, but it's just if you keep encountering the same wall, it's like, take a look at that wall. Take a look at, you know, why it seems to be a frequent situation, because usually that's an opportunity. And so I used to find myself having the same kind of disagreements with people. And it was like, it wasn't until I could see for myself that I was getting into the same argument because I thought that point was worth fighting for. But it didn't. And then once I saw that, then I was like, oh, it's not really worth it. And then that conflict kind of dissolved. It kind of like dissipated itself. It just dissolved. And it was because I could see that I was still running into that wall. And that wall was proving that point because I thought that proving that point proved my value. Right. And so then that situation stopped happening because I was able to see the root. But if I'm not paying attention to where the root is, then I'm just gonna keep encountering that same weed.
It's interesting, you know. I know we talk about this quite a bit, but because even the idea of external really goes with conceptual, because external is a perception, right? External is not something that actually exists because you don't know anything outside your own awareness. You don't know anything outside your own awareness, but the idea of you creates the idea of them or the idea of it, and that is an external perception. Immediately, they're not you, says the idea of you. But when you're in a dream, you're still experiencing things in terms of division. You're still experiencing characters and places and sensations and everything else, but there's less concept. And so you're learning in a different way. You're experiencing things in a different way because the concept of the other characters isn't forefront of your mind. And so it's kind of interesting because what we're saying ultimately is that in relinquishing this need to think about yourself, you are also relinquishing the perception of external and internal. Because unless you're thinking about it, they're the same thing.
They're the same exact thing. And as soon as you think, even for a moment, about, an attempt to control, like attempt to guarantee something instead of just paying attention and being involved and letting it play out and being sensitive, like trying to jump to something or act in a certain way with, I don't know, hesitation. But again, a lot of it stems from just like a more immediate response. Like a lot of times I'll notice tension and then go to some sort of story, some sort of way to rationalize that tension, like so quick that it feels like it's stemming from the story itself, but it's the feeling. It's the attempt to, control the feeling away, control the tension away, control the response away, and a lot of times that can be from something underneath, some sort of assumption as well. And like focusing on this idea that you have any sway or guarantee next, like you can feel that internal external shift can feel almost distant in a moment. And then is that can just be a story on top of your experience too.
Right. Oh, I like how you phrase that though. The story is almost on top of your existence. Yep. And it feels that way when you almost treat the story like a safety blanket and you hold on to it so tightly because you think that it is almost, you need it for protection. And so you need to defend the story, because you think you are the story. And I see this an example with people that take a certain political stance. I am a Democrat. I am a Republican. I am a red-blooded American. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's believing that story is your identity, not realizing it's just another story. And even if you really resonate with the story, it's like you're not just the story. But when you are treating the story like it's an identity, it becomes like a safety blanket that you think that you can't live without, that you defend, that you want to keep close because you want to keep that comfort. But that comfort is more of a crutch. It gets in the way of walking. It's hard. You got to fumble. You got to be one-handed sometimes. You're always carrying this fucking safety blanket, and not realize you can just fold it up, tie it around your neck, turn it into a damn cape and just keep walking and just realize that the cape is just another accessory. The story is an accessory to the experience. It isn't the foundation of the experience. And it certainly isn't the foundation of you.
It's funny because that was kind of the point of Inside Out 2, right? Was that there is no one you. Like there is no one perspective of you that is correct. And if you're trying to hold on to that one perspective, you become very fragile. It becomes a game of control and anxiety, right? Whereas if you allow yourself to change, there's a level of self-acceptance that comes along with that. If you allow yourself to recognize all the different perceptions of yourself without judgment, there's a level of wisdom that goes along with that because you're adding context to your experience and the ability to empathize with other people who are within that context.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And
that's it. Inside Out 2. That's where I went.
Yeah.
I went with Inside Out 2 just because it's a dope movie.
Yeah. And that shift from assuming, because like that feeling like yourself. Like, no, I know myself and I'm this type of person in Inside Out.
I'm a good person.
Inside Out 2. Yeah, Riley, I'm a good person.
Spoiler alert.
And then it became, all right. That's enough of.
No, just say spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
If you don't want spoilers,
Inside Out 2.
Don't watch the rest of this episode. Go watch Inside Out 2, then come back and watch the rest of this episode.
That's right.
There we go.
I will try to keep it more vague,
No, you've been warned.
What?
Spoilers.
Yeah. So yeah, that initial sort of feeling. I mean, that was the shift for her. Was like realizing, oh, maybe I'm not that or can't be that, and then it's like then became all about if then,
Right.
you know, if then throughout her that, you know, the middle of the movie. And it was, the story wasn't so much a solidified thing, but it was, if I do these things, then I'm this type of person.
Possibly,
And
right?
it's always
Yeah.
something outside of what you're doing.
But limited to what the imagination could come up with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the side of
Yeah.
anxiety was looking at all of the parts of the imagination where it's like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Couldn't stand the possibilities that something could go well. Immediately, like something doesn't feel right here. Right?
Yeah.
What is wrong? Why is that a happy moment? And anxiety can't take the possibility that it's wrong.
No, because it's trying to protect. You know, it's trying to protect you, and it's frantically running around thinking that it's running to safety, but it's usually making it a lot harder. You know, and so we're not just that one story, and it's a culmination of things, and our imagination is both a wonderful place, but it also can be, you know, it also can create scarier images, but it's always creating images based on what you know, right? So it's very hard for you to imagine something from the unknown. So when you think about what you think of, whether it's good or bad, just know that these are all just your brain's attempt at reshaping all the things you've already been through. So it really is a hard hypothetical, you know, like machine, because it really can't come up with something entirely new. It's usually going to be just something that you've experienced before that it thinks either might happen again in a better or worse context. And so that's something to keep in mind too, that, you know, as much as your imagination can sometimes be spot on, it's not something to take in you know, without questioning it. You know, your imagination is just another tool. It's not a guarantee.
If you fall into believing that it's some sort of guarantee, it's like, you're right. It's like all those ideas, all those stories are situations that have been, like, they're existing, you know, in a sense, or they stem from that. And the alternative is that it's all one question mark. It's all one big question mark. And you're one big question mark as you go. And so, you know, assuming that there's a way to answer that question, even, you know, in some response to something, is,
right.
You know, couldn't be true.
Right. For our imagination, whether it's good or bad, quote unquote, it's like, it's a maybe. You know, maybe this could happen, and maybe things could go the way that my highlight reel, maybe my highlight reel could happen, or maybe my nightmare scenarios could come true, but I don't know. It's like, is it happening now? And if it's not happening now, there's really not too much I can do with what's not happening now. But what can I work with? Things that are available. So what's happening now are things that are available, and with what's available, I can do something. So it's like, what makes sense versus what am I trying to choose to make me feel better, or what am I trying to do to make this situation make a guarantee? Am I trying to make myself feel better? Am I trying to make a guarantee, or am I just doing what makes sense in the moment given what's available? You know, and things start to feel a lot less personal, because when I'm saying what's available, it's like, I'm hungry. There's bread and peanut butter I'm in a scenario where I'm hungry and there's bread and peanut butter. It's like, what's available is a peanut butter sandwich. You know, I could fantasize. I could think, I'm never going to eat again. Is it only going to be peanut butter jelly sandwiches forever? Is this my only option? Or, this was a steak. I think I can't eat it. It's not a steak, you know? But it's like, what's available is either the food that's here or the opportunity to walk out the door and go get something else. But it's like, it just, like, what makes sense is starting to feel a lot more, it feels like there's a lot less hesitation into leaning into what makes sense versus the way that I tried to bulldoze my way through into the making guarantees.
Because even the guarantees that we've made or tried to make, like, even those don't end up, like, it really is. It's interesting how much we'll create ideas of situations, but then discount how there's no guarantee with any of that, period. like there's no guarantee of, you know, anything beyond, you know, you even experiencing things in the way that you are, or this, you know, not ending tomorrow, you know, like reality, whatever this is. And like there's no guarantee of that, then why not pay all of your attention to the step that you're on? It's that sense of feeling like, well, I don't know what's next. It's always been like a couple steps down the road, but it's like, have you ever fully paid attention to like really the step that you're on without assuming that there's, you know, a direction there that is best, or some guarantee beyond, you know, the immediacy of the step that you're on, you know, the breath that you're taking, the word that you're saying.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like you said, it's the direction that you're going in, and the assumption that you know how it should go and the pace that it should go at. You know, like it's one thing, it's like, I'm going to go in this direction, and you do it, you're like, fuck, I should be doing it faster, I should be doing this better, I should be, and it's like, well, if that were true, you would be. And if that were what you were meant to do, you would be able to do that, but you're not able to do that. What you're able to do is what you're doing. But there's this judgment again. It's like, you know, I need to know where it's going. I need to know how fast I'm going to get there. I need to know what's going to be at the end. I need to know what that's going to mean about me. I need to know all the, and it's like, holy shit. Like there's just so much weight that goes with all of that. And it's just overcommitment to the idea that you can know any of that. That you can know any of those answers. Because you can't. You just can't. You're never going to have all the variables. You're never going to have all the information. You're never going to have the whole picture. You know, and so all you're left with is what you can actually do. And when that's all you're left with, what you find is that you really focus on doing it, which makes you faster at it, which is the funniest thing. Like all of a sudden you let go of being productive and fucking high value and, you know, all of those things, and I'm going to be really, really good at this thing. You let that go, and you just focus on doing it because you want to do it, because you know that it's the step that you're on. So you pay attention to it like it's all of your existence. Because what if it is? You know, what if you will die in 5 minutes, and you're sitting there and you're stapling copies of some fucking newsletter, or you're you know, doing something arduous, or you're doing something mind-numbing and repetitive, or you're doing something you don't want to do? What are you going to do right now with those 5 minutes? Are you going to bitch about what you're doing? You have 5 minutes. You're going to go and try and find something that makes you happy. You have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. Even if next door was a playground, it would still take you a few minutes to get there. What are you doing? Like running to make the most of that last minute that's going to exist after you run? You can just settle into where you are and go, I don't need to have an opinion about all of this. I don't need to have an opinion about all of this. And all of a sudden you're just there. And those 5 minutes will at least stretch out, and you'll be left with the experience of life and reality rather than your fucking opinion of it. And at least that is coming to terms with existence in those last moments. But you don't have to make it your last moments. You can just come to existence right now. Come to terms with your relationship with yourself. Why do you need to be more? This is what you have. This is what you'll always have. You don't need to be more. You're already it. It's not about being more. It's about making more of what you are, which means it's already in there. There's nothing for you to find. Just express it. And the more you express it, the more you see.
Even in those points where it doesn't seem as easy or feel as easy, it's like you can still do something. You can still do more than just try to control a way to getting to a point where it feels more seamless, where it feels, because I think there can be this, you know, sort of attachment to feeling good, you know, feeling relaxed, feeling like very much at ease, and kind of put that up on a pedestal and assume like, oh, if that's not the case, then something wrong is going on. But like wherever that is, like if you've got 5 minutes, like wherever you're at, why wouldn't you at least just be like, all right, maybe the last 5 minutes are going to be tense. Am I cool with that?
That's it.
And then right there, it's like, it's the fight to the feeling. It's the fight of the feeling. It's the fight of attention. It's the assumption that, like, you got to double down on something instead of just taking it for what it is and seeing that it's not really the wall that you put in front of you until you assume that it's a wall, and then it becomes one. So it's only because it's like stepping back and looking at it, assuming it's the case, instead of it being like something that you're stepping through. It's like that push into that next, what's next, without a guarantee necessarily of where, even you're taking the next moment, as if, because then it's like, I got to assume 10 steps down the road if I know where I'm taking this step, instead of just, continuing to pay attention and be sensitive to the step that you're on.
Right, because you are the step. That's why I liked the one-step process. I think that's in season 1, and I love that episode. And it just kind of highlights that in much more detail. But it is that you are this step. This step is everything that's happening right now, and this step is this moment. And no matter how big or small you think this moment is your entire life. This is your whole life, is all being experienced right now on this quote unquote step. And so it feels not as surprising, to kind of highlight just my whole life is this step. It doesn't feel as absurd as I would have thought hearing that statement was just even a year ago, even just a few months ago. Today that feels, or in this moment, to say that my whole life is in this moment, that life is all in this moment, doesn't seem as absurd.
No. But it's kind of funny in the same way that, we say the step, but when you take a step, it's not just a single action. There's a whole bunch of things that go in, including just the transition from heel to toe.
Oh, on the same foot.
Right? On one foot.
Yes.
Like that's
Yes.
it. Like that whole transition, each and every part of that is its own motion, is its own thing to pay attention to. It's just that we've gotten so used to doing it.
Autopilot.
Right? But that's it. It's like you're taking a step. There's a lot to that. And this is a step you've never taken in a way you've never taken on a limb that didn't exist.
Yeah. And so to assume like you have some sense of a direction, if it's a new branch, for example, like to think that you could like create in your head an image of like the correct way for that branch to look while you're at the tip of the branch. Like that's that feel, instead of just continuing like there's no way whichever direction it goes. It's going to depend on a lot of factors. It's going to depend on a lot of things. But if you keep trying to like overlay the should, the right, the correct, the idea that immediately cuts you off, immediately puts a wall, because then it's like, well, this is the correct thing and anything else is incorrect. If that is the focus, if it is that specific, if your sense of being able to get some guarantee or some continuation down the road that you can continue to control, like it's so singular and not going to be the truth. But then it's anything else, any step from here, if it doesn't match that perfectly, like is then missing it. And there's going to be a response of tension. It's from having that, idea of where the branch should go, of where you should go or take something or be or become or should be right now. And once I'm there, once I get there, once I become that.
Ooh, there.
Yeah.
No, but when you're talking, what came up was farming. To not compare, but just to compare how nature, like a living forest, how that looks and functions versus how like we farm. And the way that we farm is very much, we know the best way that guarantees high yield crops, high return. But the way that we farm literally puts it's like a agricultural desertification,
Yep.
where the way that we farm like strips the land of its nutrients over time, and so the rich fertile soil becomes this dead dirt. And we've done that before with the Nile River in Egypt, in Africa. And that used to be, the Nile River was so fertile and so beautiful, but the way that we farmed, we depleted a lot of its nutrients. And so it's not a primary water source anymore. And so now the Egyptians get their water from Ethiopia, but now there's a conflict between the two of them because Ethiopia wants to keep their water for themselves, which is another conversation, side note. But I just mean, like, the way that we farm has control as the focus, and it literally strips the land of its nutrients, and it doesn't work long term. But we're not paying attention to how the way that we pursue control ripples and has its own consequence. But a forest doesn't have control, and it's rich and it's fertile because things are sensitive to each other, but we are not sensitive to ourselves and to the environment that we both are and create. And then without that sensitivity, it's just running into the same wall and then wondering why we have a headache.
Yeah. Shout out, by the way, to no-till farming, which is a fantastic way to avoid everything that Amanda just described in terms of desertification and creating a dust bowl and all that other stuff. You don't have to till the earth each and every year. You don't have to do all that. You can, in fact, practice permaculture and find a way to grow things that complement other things while not in any way destroying the soil whatsoever. So if you haven't yet, do check out Living Soil. Living Soil is definitely a thing that it has the capacity to change the world in terms of carbon sequestration. Likewise, hemp. Growing hemp is another way that we can improve the soil, because hemp will actually revitalize the soil that it grows in, even if that soil has been contaminated with oil and whatnot.
That's incredible. Go hemp. It's got over 2,000 uses, and I'm so excited to find out all of them. It's what I've heard, and I've done like minimal research, but you can make hemp concrete, you can make hemp oil, hemp gasoline, the hemp itself, like from the way that it revitalizes the soil. Mm-hmm. To all the uses you get from its root to stem to seed. It is incredible. It's really cool to explore these options. And I like that you put up the DU Life Troubleshooter, because that is an excellent option that I highly recommend checking out. It is for free in the ChatGPT store. Check it out.
Or go to dualisticunity.com/troubleshooter, and it will take you right to it. It is free now, which is dope. We have about a minute left until we take a short break, and then we go on to Patreon for our Thursday night call, which is a new addition to our group schedule. If you would like to check out our group schedule, you can do so. You can download it as a calendar to your calendar app. Just go to Dualistic Unity, and in the navigation bar, you will find the group schedule option. Calendar's right there. We are now Monday to Thursday, basically available either from 5 p.m. Eastern time onward or 6 p.m. Eastern time onward. And then Sundays, we get together at 1 p.m. Eastern time for an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. And then we have 3 hours of groups after that. So Patreon is definitely the place to be if you've not already joined. If you can't join Patreon, that is okay. It is awesome that you can listen to the podcast at all, but do try to join us on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern time for our free group. Because if you can join us for the free group, we do that every week. Go to dualisticunity.com. I know I've said that website quite a bit now. And click on live events. That will take you to the registration form. You can register for any of the upcoming Wednesdays because they're all pre-planned. So definitely register for some. Mark it on your calendar. Join us, and we would love to see you there. But that is the end of today's episode. This has been fun.
It's been a great one. Yeah. And in and out of all sorts of things. And Patreon, here we come in about 15 minutes. So, yeah, free trial on there if you haven't checked it out. And we'll be on tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, for the next episode 35 of season 6. We do have a fantastic question here. Oh, I wish I could answer it. Ray, what's your take on life after death? Andrew, Amanda, I wish I could answer that question for you. I can tell you right now that we actually have an episode.
Season 2, episode 10.
It's called Life and Death.
Yes.
It's a dope episode. I look forward to your thoughts. We might even talk about it on Patreon if you're there.